I think a lot of people were taken by surprise, and a lot of people who normally function very well and cope very well were quite surprised at how things affected them, you know, emotionally, psychologically and physically.
Hi, I'm Julie and I went through Cyclone Marsha.
I'm Deb and I went through Cyclone Marsha, and it was very scary for me because I was on my own.
On Friday, the 20th of February 2015, Tropical Cyclone Marcia made landfall on the communities along the Capricorn Coast and the Rockhampton region, causing widespread damage to homes, businesses, infrastructure and, in particular, the environment and local natural areas. One of the many hidden casualties in this event was the devastating impact the cyclone had on wildlife and their habitat.
Straight after the cyclone, we actually discovered that a lot of wildlife pretty much disappeared. We couldn't even rescue things, and if we did, the injuries were just too horrific to save them. A lot of animals just perished.
So a lot of possums were coming into care with what's called stress dermatitis, which is caused when the possum is stressed, obviously, and in this case a lot of it was they'd lost their habitat, they had nowhere to live. A lot of birds that were malnourished, particularly fruit doves in Byfield, where there was nothing left in Byfield, no food left for them.
These dedicated community members and volunteers of Wildlife Rockhampton Rescue, Rehabilitation and Release, also victims of the cyclone themselves, additionally bore the overwhelming after effects of this event. Their dedication to the care and well-being for sick and injured wildlife went on for months and months.
Well, we're still feeling the long-term impact. The trees are still recovering. It takes a long time for a tree to have a hollow in it for animals to have a house.
Obviously you're dealing with suffering, and for any wildlife carer that's a part of the work, but it doesn't make it any easier to deal with. And the suffering, the malnourishment that we were seeing, the stress dermatitis in possums, the orphan possums because the parents die because there's nowhere to live, that takes an emotional toll.
The emotional toll on these carers caused by Tropical Cyclone Marcia and other natural disaster events plays heavily on their psychological and physical well-being.
Burnout is a big thing, and emotionally, because you're so stressed with what the animals are going through, because we don't get healthy animals in, and you're going through an emotional situation with what you've been through with Marsha and the clean-up as well. Mentally and physically, you're drained.
Historically, people do worry about their animals and about animals in general, and sometimes that's quite a big factor in how people are traumatised, because they either lose animals or they're worried about animals getting hurt.
Nearly 2 years on from ex-tropical cyclone Marcia, and another emerging threat could heavily impact on our wildlife and their habitat: wildfires. With the increased fuel load caused by ex-tropical cyclone Marcia, Queensland Fire and Emergency Service, together with the Rural Fire Service, constantly monitor and manage the threat of fires and wildfires from occurring.
We've done a study into it to ascertain the impact that this would have, and realised we had to burn a lot cooler and a lot more safer, and that the wildfire season was going to have a far greater impact. In response to that, Rural Fire Service elevated their response to protect the community against a massive wildfire occurring and destroying the environment.
With regular seasonal threats of natural disasters, be it cyclones or wildfires, these threats can have disastrous outcomes on wildlife and their habitat. With this likelihood, and together with past experiences, our dedicated Wildlife Rockhampton carers are ready to do it all over again.
Yes, I would absolutely do it all again if there was another natural disaster, another cyclone, floods, fires, whatever there is out there, because somebody has to do it.
You'd do it all over again. I mean, it's my passion. I'm a wildlife person through and through, wildlife carer. Otherwise I wouldn't be doing this job, and they're there for my grandchildren to see and for the next generations. Then I feel I've done my part.
Natural disasters can and do affect everyone, including the silent wildlife living alongside our communities. And should a natural disaster event occur, then the recovery becomes everyone's business.
With Lifeline, if you volunteer for the Lifeline service answering the phones, they're the people that we send out because they've got a lot of experience communicating with people who are traumatised and in crisis.
Organisations such as Lifeline and Wildlife Rockhampton Rescue Rehabilitation and Release are there when these events happen, providing the necessary care and support for the entire community. What part can you play?